At the age of 17, I was arrested and incarcerated for being an accomplice to a robbery, and I was ultimately sentenced to 20 to 40 years in prison.
The conference is going phenomenal. My wife, Yolanda Johnson Peterkin, actually hosted last night. Last night was phenomenal. Today is going great. The plenaries are excellent so far.
It's been pretty amazing. Last night when I got to see Angela Davis speak, that was pretty iconic. I've learned a lot as far as watching the panels, hearing people's stories. It's been very enlightening.
The conference so far, it's been awesome. We had Thursday night was a sold out crowd. Friday night was a sold out crowd. Over 1,200 people came, and it's been going really well.
The root cause of violence in my community, which is East New York, Brooklyn, is because we have undereducated school systems, we have undereducation of our children, and we have no colleges in East New York, Brooklyn. If we have a little bit more education in our communities, a lot more education in our communities, we could stop the violence that perpetuates in our community, which takes people to the next level of state violence, and we can also fight back for the individuals who are trying to instill in our minds that the state violence is our violence, when really it's not. It's their violence against us.
I have personal experience with violence and incarceration. I was incarcerated for 10 years in a male's institution. And of course, there was a lot of violence in there as well. I've also experienced violence on the outside, being a woman of trans experience. The root causes of violence, in my opinion, is the lack of understanding and the lack of reinforcing the knowledge that so many people have been taught through the years, but we're not implying it. We're not applying it. So pretty much we have like this seed that we're planting. We have like this newfound knowledge that we have a better understanding that we are our equal, and we're coming to that consensus. And the closer we get to the consensus, the further we get back, the further we go in our ability to be able to share that information in a way that people understand, basically meeting them at their level.
Some of the narratives that people have been hearing about people who've been formerly incarcerated mainly has been historically negative, because when you think of an incarcerated person or a formerly incarcerated person, Martha Stewart doesn't come to mind. There's people that look like me that comes to mind. So it's affecting 70 million Americans, and I think that the country is starting to look at our criminal justice system differently, and we need to be smart on crime.
There's a piece of your humanity that's lost when you are put behind bars, even if it's for a day. And because of that, people kind of take it to the extreme and just assume that you're not a human at all anymore. You hear it in the language. We're having this whole exchange, and we're enhancing like the way we speak about people, but people still get confused when you start bringing up people with criminal history. Even I don't even like that. I feel like it's justice system involved, because what is a criminal? And so people take away the humanity. You're an ex-con, you're an ex-felon.
I think something we're hearing today over and over again is that education is key. Feeling safe when you're going to a public school, when you're a kid, not being treated like a criminal is really important. I think something else we're hearing today is that trauma plays a large role, both in people who end up being incarcerated and people who are victimized. And I think if we really wanted change, we would move from a system that focuses on punishment and move toward a system that works toward education and solving problems related with trauma.
It takes a village, not only to raise a child, but to support each other. We have to work together. We have to stick together. We have to commune together. You know, the root word of community is to commune. We have to be together, live together, pray together, eat together, talk together, love together. And once we get that unity back in our communities, then I think we can start the change. But it's a very basic concept, but it's a lot of work that needs to go into our communities just to get to the beginning point.
Well, currently I work with at-risk youth, and I feel like that's where our hope is. I feel like if we work towards prevention and we work towards finding out what their needs are and recognizing that they have voices, recognizing that they didn't ask to be put in the situations they're into. A lot of their environment affects who they are, affects their actions. I think if we tend to those needs, provide them with good resources, and actually listen to them. Listening is key in getting to the root of the problem. I think a lot of work is done surface level. We ask questions, but we need to be consistent, we need to be there, and we need to show them that, we really care.
In Canada, we're quite isolated in our justice movement. There is a prison abolition movement in Canada, but I think because of the states, there's a lot of perception that mass incarceration is an American problem, that the racialization of mass incarceration is American. There's no racism in Canada because we had the Underground Railroad, that kind of thing. So it can be very difficult to have these conversations in Canada, even in our own communities. So within the African Nova Scotian communities, which are actually the oldest communities in North America with Black people. But because of the kind of intense racism we experience in a white supremacist Canada that doesn't acknowledge the presence of Black people, even our own communities, we have difficulty acknowledging the effect that the police state or incarceration has on us. So we thought that coming here would help us see some of the tools in your communities, but also help us bring some of the tools that we work with in Canada that I think also isn't necessarily known in the States.
We can change that narrative by offering more resources for kids, after-school programs, more sports, more things to do, because usually in poor neighborhoods we don't have nothing to do, and we you need resources basically to help break that, and people to teach, and better public education, and teachers who really care about giving quality education and teaching the history of where we come from, because I know I didn't know a lot until I got into college.
Okay. I believe that we can change violence through education, but primarily through transformative spaces, spaces where we're able to really heal, first and foremost, and for us to grow. People make mistakes. All people make mistakes. Many people in this country who've never had a felony conviction have made mistakes. But the methods by which certain communities are able to heal and get past the mistakes that they've made in life often depends on privilege and how the justice system looks at people with privilege versus those who don't. I believe that at the end of the day, education in this country was supposed to be meant for people who want to learn, grow. And us being in school has allowed us to transform our narrative, allowed us to learn, I can be this person, I'm not necessarily stuck in this person, and I can better understand where I came from.
So some alternatives to mass incarceration and punishment is to start talking about restorative justice and what that looks like. Start talking about the abolition of prisons. So sure, sounds like a lofty goal, but to aspire high and to dream high means that you'll hit somewhere in the middle. And I also believe that we need to have more balance when it comes to setting bail.
And will that help to keep our communities safer?
Oh, absolutely. So I believe that that when you talk about criminal justice, they set it up like it's us against them, or them against us, and it's really about community health. And so when the community's healthy, the community's safe. And so I think that all the work that's being done now, particularly with all the scholars and some of the grassroots organizers, and just us ordinary folks striving to do extraordinary things.